awkward silence. We're just waiting for the top of the hour to start. It feels very awkward that we're just seated here. Yes. Yeah, we're ready. All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this press conference, which has been convened by the Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance on behalf of the over 1,000 CSOs that are part of the network with representation in more than 50 African countries. So we can rightly claim that we represent voices from the continent of Africa. And the reason for our press conference is to share our initial thoughts about how we see the proceedings unfolding, but also the kinds of expectations that we have as representatives of the African people from these discussions. We have quite a big but diverse panel, and the reason the panel is so large is because we wanted to reflect all of the perspectives from the continent, and I'm going to quickly introduce the panel, starting from my far left, where we have Dr. Mithika Mwenda, who is Executive Director of the Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance, and is from Kenya. Right next to him is Mokhtar Sidi, who is from Mauritania. We have Sheila Anyango, who is from Kenya, representing the Youth Voice, but also bringing her expertise in climate finance. We have Dr. Augustine Jamshi, who's Executive Director of the Africa Coalition for Sustainable Energy and Access. He's from Cameroon. And to my immediate left, we have Gertrude Kenyangi, who is from Kenya and represents... Sorry? Who is from Uganda, but sorry, there's Kenya in your name. Who is from Uganda, representing, among other things, the voice of the women on the continent. To get us started, I'd like to invite Dr. Jamshi to present to read out a statement that we have prepared for this occasion. Once he's done, I'm going to ask each member of the panel to say a thing or two in about 1 minute, and then we're going to open it up for questions from members of the press and the audience. Dr. Jamshi, you have the floor.
Thank you. African people's demands and expectations from Bonn Climate Conference. As the subsidiary bodies convene for SB62, the Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance, PACJA, speaking on behalf of a broad coalition of civil society organizations, grassroots movements, women, youth, indigenous peoples, and frontline communities across Africa, wishes to reaffirm our unwavering commitment to the imperatives of climate justice. We remind negotiators, observers, and parties that the outcomes of this conference must reflect the lived realities, aspirations, and urgent needs of the world's most climate vulnerable continent, that is Africa. In this regard, ladies and gentlemen, Africa's voice must shape the direction of global climate discussions and actions. However, only a few days into the talks, the Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance is already alarmed by the sluggish pinto of proceedings and delays in adopting an agenda. This signals the beginning of yet another maneuver orchestrated by developed country partners to keep the frontline communities in Africa and other vulnerable regions under the bondage of climate crisis. It is ridiculous that day one of negotiations ended without an agreement on the agenda, particularly because parties could not agree on the most crucial matter, climate finance, with special reference on Article 9.1 of the Paris Agreement, which is clear on the obligations of developing country partners in providing resources to developing countries for climate action. We reiterate that negotiations in Bonn this year must reflect the urgency in dealing with ever-elusive questions of financing climate action. According to the IPCC, Africa has suffered annual losses of 7 billion due to climate change between 2010 and 2019. If we continue with high emission scenarios, this figure could rise up to 50 billion by 2040. This could cause a 2 to 4% reduction in Africa's GDP growth per year by 2040 and a 10 to 25% reduction by 2100. It is therefore crucial to provide urgent finance specifically dedicated to adaptation, loss and damage to help countries prepare for future displacements, livelihood disruptions, and losses. The following demands represent our aspirations and expectations from Bonn, SB62, and beyond. 1, adaptation finance must be need-based, grant-based, and predictable. The promise of adaptation finance remains unfulfilled. African communities continue to absorb the worst climate impacts with the least support. We therefore demand a clear roadmap towards meeting the global goal on adaptation, grounded in African realities and community-led solutions. Quantifiable sub-targets for adaptation finance under the UNFCCC with at least 50% of the climate finance earmarked for adaptation. A transition from loans to grant-based finance for adaptation, especially for least developed countries and small island developing states. Recognition that needs-based adaptation must be central organizing principle for climate finance, not just a secondary consideration. The second demand, loss and damage. Deliver on the Glasgow and Sharm el-Sheikh mandates. The operationalization of the Loss and Damage Fund was a breakthrough, but it must not become another hollow promise. At SB62, we therefore demand as follows. A full clarity on the scale and source of funding commitments. Voluntary pledges are not enough. Developed countries must provide new, additional, and predictable funding. Governance that prioritizes equity, transparency, and the rights of affected communities. Accessible finance channels for communities experiencing displacement, economic disruptions, and non-economic losses. Our third demand is on the UNFCCC, and it is that it must be transformational. renegotiations on the new collective quantified goal must reflect the true cost of climate action in the global south. We therefore call for, 1, a flow of climate finance aligned with developing country needs and science, a clear architecture separating finance from mitigation, adaptation, and loss and damage, binding obligations for developed countries based on historical responsibility, not burden shifting disguised as burden sharing. The fourth demand is that just transition must be equity-led. Africa's energy transition must not replicate the injustice of the fossil fuel era. At SB62, therefore, we must recognize Africa's right to energy access, industrial development, and value addition. Support nationally determined just transition work programs tailored to each country's context. Ensure transitional financing mechanisms include investment in renewable grid skills, development, and decentralized energy systems that benefit people, not just markets. Avoid imposing blank bans on external conditionalities on Africa's use of transitional fuels, including gas, while supporting a clear path to full decarbonization. The fifth demand is on Article 6, and that it must protect people, not profits. We reject carbon market mechanisms that commodify African lands, forests, communities for offsets that allow polluters to delay decarbonization. At SB62, therefore, we must enshrine human rights, environmental integrity, indigenous consent at the heart of Article 6 implementation. Establish strict safeguards to prevent land grabs, double counting, and speculative finance. Promote direct access for African communities to result-based finance that is additional, fair, and accountable. Finally, the last demand is participation and process. The legitimacy of the UNFCCC process depends on meaningful inclusion. We therefore demand a robust civil society participation in all negotiation rooms, not just side events. Greater support for African observers, especially youth, women, and communities. Structural reforms in how decisions are made, ensuring transparency and equity in agenda setting and leadership. As the Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance, ladies and gentlemen, we call on all parties to listen to African voices, prioritize justice over convenience, and act with urgency worthy of the crisis we face. We decry the mistrust currently witnessed amongst parties, where they are unable to agree on a simple issues like the agenda, and urge them to be guided by utmost good faith, respect for rules, and share recognition that any delay in means either consigning someone somewhere into misery or worse still, death sentence. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Njamshi. Let me quickly now pivot to the other members of the panel in just 1 minute, if it's possible. I'll say a few things, provide your perspectives, perhaps to some of the things that have been raised in the statement, but also some things that may not have emerged from the statement. I would like to start with Dr. Mwenda at the far left.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We, as the statement has said, we are starting the SB62 on a very, very worrying note. As you know, SBs are very important because they are the ones which lays foundation for the agenda to be agreed during the COP. In this regard, the eagerly awaited Belém. But looking at the sluggish manner in which the parties are behaving, that we are in the second day, and as it happened yesterday, you observe that now we have 2 postponements of the commencement of the preliminary. Now it has gone to 3 p.m., and most likely we can predict that it may not even take place today. And what does that tell you? I think we are almost having a broken system here in Bonn. And that will have consequences as we head to the COP30. There are many agenda items which need to be laid out, and the implications of that is that we may not have a firm agenda and the issues which we are supposed to do. So our request, our appeal to the parties, both from the north and the south, let us build consensus. We need things to start moving. Any delay, as it has been said, has far-reaching consequences to the people who want leadership. And for industrialized countries, we are watching you, and any deliberate attempt to sabotage and obstruct this process is being watched and will not be taken kindly, particularly by us, the civil society. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Okta.
Okay, thank you so much. It was like crystal clear in the declaration that like we Africans are here mainly like to discuss or to defend our priority, which is the adaptation, loss and damage over mitigation, which is even like under the IPCC, even when we stop the greenhouse gases. Now, today, we still have a lot of issues and a lot of effects of climate change to deal with, especially in Africa. So dealing with adaptation is financing adaptation. And the whole thing about the delay in this opening is around finance, is around financing like climate finance. And Article 9.1 is the agenda item that we're discussing that is delaying like mostly. This is really concerning and alarming that some parties are not even okay with just discussing an article of a Paris Agreement. So if you are not like accepting even to discuss this and being like choosing what is going with some of the country's interest and like blocking the other points, I think this is alarming. And like I'm reflecting on the indicators, and I'm calling all to like have some indicator that speaks to the African realities. And I will also request you all to submit to the negotiators the your point of view around the indicators, to have in Belém some indicator that speaks to the people's reality, not just to the technically and process oriented issues. There is a lot of barriers made around. You know, we had the global goal on mitigation, but the global goal on adaptation was retarded, and we still, and this is also concerning, that there was a lot of barriers when it comes to adaptation issues. So we're just really concerned, and also around the NAPs. It's been like the 4th round of negotiations that took Rule 16 and get postponed because of the collaboration of other partners. I'll just leave it there and leave the youth issues.
Thank you so much, Okta. Sheila, in 1 minute or 1 minute and a half.
All right. So as African youth, we raise our collective concern over the chronic inadequacy, inaccessibility, and inequality of climate finance in the continent at a time that the African communities, ecosystems, and economies are facing the harshest and most disproportionate impacts of climate change. We all know that Africa contributes to less than 4% of the global emissions, yet it bears the brunt of droughts, floods, food insecurity, and displacement. Climate finance in its current state remains insufficient and unpredictable, which is falling short of the commitments made. This undermines Africa's ability to adapt, build resilience, and transition justly towards the low-carbon development pathways. We, the youth, are not just victims, we are stakeholders in the climate economy, and we are the innovators, activists, entrepreneurs, and policy shapers who are driving the green solutions in the grassroots areas within the continent. Yet our access to climate finance remains extremely limited due to bureaucratic barriers, lack of capacity, and exclusion from decision-making spaces. We echo the African Union's 2025 theme of the year, which is the year of justice for Africans and people of African descent through reparations. This theme is not merely symbolic. It is profound. It is a profound recognition that historical injustices that have created enduring systems of inequalities continue to manifest in our present realities, including our disproportionate vulnerability to climate change and the struggle for adequate climate finance. Our call as African youth is African young people, over 600 million, are not the future, we are the present. The decision made today about climate finance will either empower us or betray us. The world must move beyond empty pledges. It is time to decolonize climate finance, align our resources with African realities and their ambitions, and center intergenerational equity in every policy and financial mechanism. We stand ready as African youth to co-create, to lead, and to hold institutions accountable. Climate finance must be delivered in the spirit of fairness, justice, and mutual accountability. Climate justice is youth justice. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Gertrude?
Yeah.
You have the floor now.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. I'm also joining my voice to the people who have already spoken, concerned that it's difficult to reach consensus at this very crucial meeting. We as women from the grassroots, indigenous peoples, and local communities, we are most vulnerable to climate change. We work in climate-sensitive sectors, for example, agriculture and food processing value chains. We are at the front line of absorbing household risks to climate change. We face additional barriers to accessing resources for adaptation. For instance, finance, new adaptation technologies, markets for climate-smart goods and services. We therefore call upon our governments, the states, and all those people that are gathered in the decision-making positions to move away from rhetoric and to action. A policy is only as good as its implementation. Yeah.
Thank you so much. We've entered the last 10 minutes of our press conference and would like to open it up to members of the press or members of the audience, if you don't really have to be a member of the press to ask a question here. So whoever wants to go, please raise your hand. Just tell us who you are, who you represent, and you can ask your question. And any member of the panel will be glad to respond. The floor is now open to the audience. While you're still thinking, I have a question, and I want to ask Dr. Mwenda that question. What happens if we don't make progress on this agenda issue? The question of delays. We saw that last year, and we saw how it impacted the outcomes of COP29. What are your greatest fears if we continue with these delays?
So thank you, moderator. I think that is not the outcome which we anticipate. But if it happens, then first blame will be accordant the people who normally does that is the rich countries. But once that is done, we will discuss with our negotiators, and particularly in the African continent, we are going to get, and we are in discussion with the African group of negotiators so that we take the next necessary action within our negotiating blocks. We need to sanction, as it has always been, the parties whose conduct has always to disrupt or obstruct the negotiations. But for any eventuality, if then that actions, the consequence is that it will be the delayed action, will not have the right agenda, and once again, we will have the COP30 not conclusively delivering its outcomes as it has happened. That will have effect on the road. The Baku to Belém roadmap, because we need to really to rethink about the 1.3 trillion ceiling on climate finance and CQG, and the other urgent matters like which are supposed to be resolved, like the GGA and others. So it is upon the negotiators, and particularly the North, really to show that good faith. We don't really anticipate that we are not going to have an outcome in SB62.
Okunjamshe, you wanted to add something?
Yes, just as you said, Eugene, we've seen this is a déjà vu situation. Last year, at SB61, this issue of finance was avoided, even though COP29 was baptized Finance COP. Ladies and gentlemen, when you look at Article 9.1 of the Paris Agreement, the legally binding, obligatory nature of that article cannot be avoided. Whether developed countries like it or not, it says very clearly, developed country parties shall provide the finances for climate action in developing countries. If we are so paranoid about an article that is the cornerstone of means of implementation, then what are we doing? So we don't have to preach for people to understand the necessity, the urgency, and the pertinence of discussing this article. We went to Baku, we had the quantified goal, 300 million, and it's from all kinds of sources. We see loans dominating in practice, burdening already debt-burdened or debt-ridden developing countries. This is not fair. How long shall we avoid this? Or rather, we insist and have this agenda item discussed. There's no need to fear, because sooner or later, we must discuss it. All these negotiations will go into water if we cannot face the elephant in the room. Who provides the finances and in what way?
Thank you so much. Let me go back to the audience. I now see a couple of hands up. I'm going to start with...
Very much. I'm Dr. Maroufi from the Kingdom of Morocco. I'm coming, je suis du Maroc. Donc because we have time is left 3 or 4 minutes to close this conference, I see that the negotiators are not serious. Really not serious since Copenhagen. Since Copenhagen, they said they will afford $100 million and for particularly for the underdeveloped countries, which they are vulnerable to this climate change. So what I see now, the climate crisis is becoming like an ice ball. They kick it from one cup to one cup, and no result for the moment. And you see the ceremony for this meeting. We're still waiting for the ceremony. I mean, now we are in the second day, and everything is not clear. And moreover, some countries like the United States has left the climate change convention, so we'll have more problems. And I think the African countries should defend their interests and show to the world that they will find this money to develop adaptation and mitigation programs to tackle the crisis of climate. And thank you.
Thank you so much. That sounded more like a comment. So I'm going to take just one more person. We only have 2 minutes left, so if you can stay on that 20 seconds, is that possible? Thank you so much.
20 seconds.
Just go ahead. You've already smiled for 5 seconds.
Yeah, okay. So I think my question lies onto everyone. We are in a current situation where many countries like the US are stepping out of the UN. And also signs are indicating, even from the first day and the second day, that developed countries are not really willing to offer finance, not just in grants, but they have been offering the finance also in loans. But there is also statistics that shows that there has been a lot of development finance that has come from also remittances from the diaspora people in the global north, African diaspora people. So for me, I just have one question to everyone. Do you still have trust in this whole process, even during this time?
Yes, thank you so much. I think we got the question. We just have 1 minute, so I'm going to allow Dr. Mwenda to respond to that. Mind you that we are going to be cut off at the top at 2:30. So anything we say after that won't really go anywhere.
So I will start with the comment from my friend from Morocco. Just to correct you that the US has not left the convention. It has only indicated that it will leave the Paris Agreement. So I think that is very important. But of course, we understand the bad faith and the role the US has been playing. But for your information, US needs the world more than the world needs them. So in fact, their withdrawal could be a bane for us. In any case, as an observant person who has been in the negotiations, US has always played a more obstructionist role, even in the negotiations here, than even providing any solution. And if you want, look at even what they have been funding, and you'll be shocked that their departure will not shake us in any way. So as a global community, we will go and work without them, because if they don't want to be part of the global community, to provide the solution to the global challenges, well and good. I got his question. Yes.
Can
we have faith on this.
Can we provide an answer to his question over coffee? I think we're out of time.
Yeah, yes, just to mention that, yes, we have faith in this multilateral process. Is the most important for us who are weak and vulnerable. A bilateral discussion for any country between the weaker and the stronger. Only the weaker loses. So let us concentrate. We have also to support the multilateral process like this as much as possible. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for coming. 30 minutes is never enough to discuss all of the issues, but I'm glad that we were able to cover what we covered. And I want to thank the panel and thank the audience for being here with us. We'll have another press conference in a week. We'll send out an announcement. So look out for what we think about the final outcome of the process. Thank you so much. Yes, we can come up if there's no one outside chasing us out of the room.